Fog hung low over Maple Hollow on the night everything changed. It was the kind of mist that seemed to muffle sound and swallow secrets. People locked their doors early, as if, sensing something was coming, something that would break the peace forever. The clock struck midnight, and the silence fell so deep it felt unnatural. The crime that shattered this town didn't just leave a mark. It carved a wound into the heart of a nation. Maple Hollow was small, safe, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and secrets rarely lasted long. But this secret, this horror, would endure. It was a mystery that would grow colder as the years passed, but never forgotten. The story of what happened that night is whispered in kitchens, shared in hushed voices at the diner, and remembered with sorrow at every town gathering. The crime didn't just take a life, it took the town's sense of safety. Even now, decades later, the fear lingers. This is the story of a mystery that refuses to rest. The unsolved crime of Maple Hollow still haunts its people, and its shadow stretches across a nation unwilling to forget. It began with a scream that sliced through the quiet. Neighbors later said they heard it, a single desperate cry. In the old Johnson house at the edge of town, a terrible act was unfolding. By morning, the world would know Maple Hollow for a reason no one wanted. Police cars arrived before dawn. Blue lights painted the white farmhouse in a cold, ghostly hue. Officers moved quickly, but their faces showed shock. Inside, they found Mrs. Johnson, beloved by everyone, gone. The back door was splintered, mud tracked across the floor, a sign of struggle. But the killer had vanished, leaving only chaos behind. Word spread faster than wildfire. People gathered on porches, eyes wide with disbelief. How could such violence find its way to their safe little town? The questions began immediately, sharp and urgent, slicing through the morning air. Rumors twisted into fear. The crime scene became a boundary, before and after. Nothing would ever be the same for Maple Hollow. In the days that followed, anxiety gripped Maple Hollow. Parents kept children close. Doors that had never needed locks now bristled with new bolts and chains. The town's routines were shattered. People looked over their shoulders, afraid the unknown killer might strike again. At the center of it all was the Johnson family, devastated. Grief tangled with confusion. Why her? Why now? Friends brought casseroles and whispered condolences, but no comfort reached deep enough. At the grocery store, people spoke in low tones, eyes darting to the empty space where Mrs. Johnson should have been. Rumors spread in the absence of answers. Some blamed strangers passing through, others suspected someone closer to home. Everyone had theories, but no one had proof. Suspicion became another member of the community, unwelcome but unshakable. Fear was everywhere. It crept into dreams, followed people down quiet streets, and hovered in every conversation. The town was united in its sorrow, but divided by its fear. Detective Ray Monroe was assigned to the case. He was known for his calm resolve, but even his steady hands trembled as he walked the scene. The Johnson house was scoured for clues. Each drawer, closet, and window was checked for the smallest sign of the intruder. A muddy footprint, a torn piece of fabric, each detail was hope. The investigation quickly grew. State police joined local officers. Interviews were conducted with neighbors, friends, and anyone who might have seen something that night. Maps of the area filled the walls of the police station, red pins marking possible sightings and escape routes. But as days turned into weeks, leads dried up. The killer left no fingerprints. No one saw a suspicious car or stranger. The muddy footprint didn't match anyone in the town. Every possible motive was explored and dismissed. It was as if the crime had been committed by a ghost. The pressure on law enforcement was immense. The community demanded answers, justice, and closure. Instead, all they had were questions and fear. At first, tips poured in. Someone claimed to have seen headlights in the woods, and another person swore they heard footsteps outside their window that night. Every single tip was chased down, each one just a thread that unraveled before it could lead to the truth. Detectives worked long hours, their faces growing more haggard with disappointment. Local newspapers covered the case every day. Killer at Large screamed the headlines, really adding fuel to the panic. People just stopped trusting each other. Old grudges resurfaced, and neighbors began to eye one another with suspicion. The town's unity started to fray at the edges. A week became a month. Mrs. Johnson's funeral was held in a packed church, but honestly, there was no sense of peace. The case stalled. The killer's trail went cold, and hope began to fade. Families wondered if their loved ones would ever be safe again. Detective Monroe felt the weight of every unanswered question. The pain of failure became a constant companion for him, and honestly, for the whole town. Then, just when hope seemed lost, an anonymous letter arrived at the police station. Its words were clipped and hurried. "You're looking in the wrong place. Check the old mill. He's been there." No signature, no return address, just a trembling hand and fresh fear. Excitement surged through the investigation team. The old mill stood on the edge of town, abandoned for years. Officers raced to the site, hearts pounding with anticipation. They found footprints, fresh cigarette butts, and a scrap of fabric. For the first time, there was real evidence. Detective Monroe's hopes soared. Could this be the break they needed? For 48 hours, the mill became the center of the investigation. Police set up a perimeter. Townspeople gathered, watching the search with anxious eyes. It seemed they might finally have a suspect, maybe even justice. But as quickly as it appeared, the lead vanished. The footprints led nowhere. The cigarette butts contained no DNA. The fabric matched nothing from the crime scene. The hope that flared so brightly was snuffed out, plunging the town back into darkness. The anonymous letter was traced and retraced, but gave up no secrets. The old mill yielded nothing more. The sense of defeat was crushing. Investigators wondered if the tip had been a cruel trick, or if they'd missed something vital. The case file grew thick with dead ends. Rumors exploded once again. Some said the killer was toying with the police. Others believed the real suspect had slipped through their fingers. Detective Monroe replayed every detail, searching for a clue they might have overlooked. Nothing fit. The feeling of helplessness deepened. Families grew more desperate for answers. Mrs. Johnson's children barely slept, their dreams filled with shadows and questions. The town felt cursed, as if a dark cloud hung over every home. The sense of safety was gone for good. With each day, the mystery grew colder. Yet the pain and longing for justice grew hotter, burning in the hearts of all who loved Mrs. Johnson. Years passed, but the wounds remained raw. The Johnson family moved away, unable to bear the memories. Other families too changed their routines, haunted by what happened. The crime shaped the town's identity, a scar that would never heal. Law enforcement officers retired with regrets, unable to let the case go. Detective Monroe kept the file on his desk till his last day, a reminder of promises unkept. New residents learned the story quickly, warned by those who could not forget. The mystery became a legend, passed down to new generations. The search for justice continued, if more quietly. Every so often, a new tip would reignite hope, only to fade like all the others. The pain persisted, shared by everyone. The nation watched, year after year, wondering if Maple Hollow would ever find peace. The ache of loss never left. The crime did not just take a life, it changed every life it touched. Today, the Johnson house stands empty, paint peeling, windows boarded. But the memory of that night lives on in every corner of Maple Hollow. The nation too remembers. Television specials revisit the case. Internet forums buzz with new theories and old suspicions. Detectives, new and old, still puzzle over the evidence. Why did the killer choose that night? Why Mrs. Johnson? What happened to the lead at the old mill? These questions echo through the years, unanswered and haunting. The crime remains unsolved, a dark riddle that endures. It is a lesson in pain, in fear, and in the longing for justice. The wound it opened never healed. Instead, it became part of the town's story and the nation's conscience. Some mysteries refuse to let go. This one still lingers, a shadow over Maple Hollow, and a reminder that not all questions have answers.